Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC 280. This episode of the Dogger Pass Podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass Podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. Producer Megan on the sticks. Cody Saftic is on the line. We got a great card, Cody. It feels like forever ago. I mean, I guess, Usman versus Edwards wasn't that long ago, I suppose, but we've had a stretch of, a couple weeks off and then, kind of some trash cards mixed in. Arguably the card of the year on tap for Saturday afternoon from Abu Dhabi. So pretty excited about it. How about you?
Yeah, man, for sure. Listen, Pat Mayo was like, hey, dude, I know you just had a kid, so, if you need to take an episode off, go for it. And today, man, I'm dead dog tired. But this is the kind of card you don't miss. This is the kind of card you can get excited for. So you're absolutely right. It's not only a pay-per-view offering, it's one of those solid pay-per-view offerings where pretty much everything on the main card could be its own fight night headline. And I'm just really excited to jump into it. My plan was I just hired some, maid to come live at the house from now on, take care of my baby. But Victor Henry had to screw that up. So here I am, working stiff yet again, trying to hit a good parlay this week to make things right.
All right, let's get right into the action then. We got Islam Makhachev taking on Charles Oliveira. Makhachev is a minus 200 favorite. Oliveira can be had for plus 170. I'm going to let you take this one to start. Who do you see coming away with the title here, Cody?
Yeah, so I'm obviously conflicted with this one. On one hand, you've got Islam Makhachev, who both of us are very high up on. He's got that style that we like, the relentless grinding and the pressure, take your guy down, smash on him, and it's hard to replicate, or it's hard to think about who's going to stop that, right? It would have to be somebody with awesome jiu-jitsu, which Charles Oliveira does. It would have to be someone with awesome striking, maybe clip him standing, which Charles Oliveira does. I just don't know how much of it is narrative that Islam Makhachev is the next Khabib. Khabib says he is. Javier Mendez says he's even better than Khabib. Everybody in that circle talks about how good he is, but you'd have to take a lot of narrative there and just go based on who is the hype on, which is obviously Islam Makhachev. If you go with not only just what you've seen the results from, it just seems like plus money and Charles Oliveira go hand in hand. Because, yeah, sure, he could lose, but the guy can win on any given day. He's kind of got all those skills. And for Islam Makhachev, he's really going to have to mind his P's and Q's. He could knock out Charles Oliveira. Sure, he could. Dustin Poirier almost had him out. Justin Gaethje had him out. The key word there is the almost, right? You got to get this guy all the way out. Otherwise, he's got pretty solid cardio. He's got a massive killer instinct. He's got the kind of power, I think, to hurt Makhachev standing. And I guess the real question mark is, we know that Makhachev can take him down, but can he just hang out in his guard for a long period of time? Maybe. Charles at his worst, not the world-class grappler. Anthony Pettis choked the guy out. Jim Miller submitted him with the knee bar. At his best, yeah, he's the UFC submissions leader for a reason, right? He's got a nasty submission game, mostly offensive. So part of me thinks that Charles Oliveira can go out there and score for the big plus money again, as he's done in his last two fights and cash for us. The other part of me just keeps going back to those Paul Felder type fights where it's like, you just get your head out of the choke and maybe you can smash him with some deadly ground and pound, which again, I think Makhachev can do. So it seems like the under in this fight is the best way of attacking it. Makhachev either breaks him down and causes quitter Charles to reemerge, or Charles is going to catch him with something. For my money's worth, though, on a card that's full of good-looking favorites, I can't admit that Charles Oliveira has kind of got that underdog status once again and could pull it off. So ever so slightly, I think I'm going to go with my fellow horseman, Charles Oliveira.
Yep, I'm in agreement with you. I jumped on Charles Oliveira against right after he finished Justin Gaethje. There was a book hanging a line. I grabbed plus 285. Obviously, that number's long gone. I added a little bit more at plus 175 on the weekend at a book. We'll see if I add more to all of this. Yeah, everyone, and you know me, I love Khabib. Always have loved Khabib. I've never really been an Islam guy, and you probably have noticed that over the years. I picked again. I mean, I bet Bobby Green. That was really dumb. Bet Bobby Green at 10-1 against him. It was a small little sprinkle, but I just maybe it's the Adriano Martins. I can never shake that knockout out of my head. It's just how reckless he was entering the pocket, hands down, chin up, and just ate that clean shot. I think his grappling's brilliant, but it's Charles Oliveira's exact style is so problematic for everything Islam wants to do. And it's if these two guys are just standing, if Islam decides that he doesn't want to to wrestle with him. It's not like Khabib, where it's like we had seen Khabib put in some the Iaquinta fight and some other fights where it's like he had to put in some time on his feet. Islam hasn't had to put in too much time, just stand up striking. Oliveira was going toe-to-toe with Gadzhi on the feet. He got clipped, he got dropped, but I think that whole quitter mentality about him, we've talked about it, in his last few fights, like that is yesterday's news. This guy's a totally different guy. And frankly, it's just like until somebody, maybe it's Islam Makhachev, proves to me that they can just take Charles down, hang out in his guard and do that without getting into significant trouble / getting submitted. Plus 170 on Oliveira seems good. I don't know if I would chase the submission prop because I could totally see him just knocking him out on the feet. Islam, I think, is a few steps behind him in terms of the striking ability. It's Charles Oliveira or pass as far as I'm concerned. I don't really understand jumping at 66% win percentage Islam Makhachev in this situation whatsoever. If I'm proven wrong on Saturday, I'm proven wrong. But, Charles Oliveira, very, very live dog that I am rooting for to win on Saturday afternoon. Moving to the bantamweight division, we've got Aljamain Sterling taking on TJ Dillashaw, minus 175 Sterling, plus 150 for Dillashaw. Who you got, Cody?
Okay, so I'm not going to chase a whole lot of underdogs after this one, but I got a feeling TJ Dillashaw's again, he's live in this spot. Now, is Aljamain Sterling the superior fighter? I think so. I think Aljamain Sterling gets shit on a lot, but the guy's got skills absolutely everywhere. He is a good striker, lacks finishing power, sure, but nasty jab, very, very quick feet. I mean, he's evasive. His athleticism is just off the charts. His wrestling is very solid. Wrestled D3 collegiately, but in terms of results in the UFC, the guy can wrestle with almost everybody. Once he does get in those situations, has an excellent back take. Once he takes the back, you're not going anywhere. I truthfully thought that Petr Yan would defeat him the first time. Aljamain Sterling came out the first 2 rounds. It's like, wow, where did this come from? Unfortunately, didn't have the cardio to keep that up. Started to get tired. Petr Yan's taken over. Petr Yan gets himself disqualified. Second time, the guy legitimately won the fight on his own merit. Was it boring? At times, sure. He would just backpack him and cling on, but great ground and pound in a lot of those spots. Got the takedowns when he wanted them. Took full advantage of the fact that Petr Yan's a slow starter. The guy's got a high ring IQ. He really is the complete package. Now, how can he beat TJ Dillashaw? Theoretically, anywhere he wants. He's faster. He's got that jab, stay to the outside, bait him in, use the smaller guy to kind of touch him up from the outside, and then wrestle with him, lean on him. He's the older man. All those things probably hold true, but TJ got popped for being on the juice, and there's nothing to suggest that he hasn't found a way around it. He looks in unreal shape right now. Keep in mind his last fight against Corey Sandhagen. That's him off a 2-year-long layoff, right? That's him coming back to the bantamweight division with ring rust, and he still shows a lot of good stuff there. It's debatable that maybe Corey Sandhagen could have won that fight or TJ could have won that fight. The bottom line is that he does have superior volume. I think he could go out there and win the striking exchanges against Aljamain Sterling, tire him as the fight goes. You've seen Aljo in his last 2 fights. He starts off very fast. Those 3, 4, and 5, that's where he's a little bit hittable. That's where his takedowns aren't quite as good. TJ's got the wrestling advantage over him. On paper, anyways, he wrestled at a higher level in college. And even in the UFC, you go back to some of his fights, when does he get taken down? Oh, John Lineker took him down. Well, yeah, but he had him down for 18 seconds of control time. Well, what about Dominic Cruz, man? Took him down 4 times. 33 seconds of control time with those 4 takedowns. It's one thing to take a man down. It's another thing to hold a man down. And no one's really done that to TJ. So if Aljo's wrestling is not good enough to get him down and hold him on consistently, and TJ's popping back up, I think it's going to be, you've seen TJ in a bunch of these 5-round fights that are wars, that 3, 4, and 5, the dude's EPO's kicking in, and he just looks fresh as a daisy still. Whereas Aljo, like that grind, sure, he can start off fast. It takes its toll on him. Sure, he can shoot those big explosive takedowns. It takes its toll on him. In a 5-round fight, someone's going to capitalize in those later rounds, not necessarily knocking him out, but just don't be down 3 going into the championship rounds. Be down 2-1. Who cares? Win the last 2, win one of the first 3. You can seal the deal. So, again, I just kind of feel like for an underdog plus money, is not taking anything away for Aljamain Sterling. It's just like, I think he's live in this spot to get upset. So sign me up for some TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, I'm really struggling to get to Aljamain Sterling at minus 175. It's not that I don't think he's talented. It's not that I don't think that he's he's a warranted champion, that he's earned this and everything like that. He's very good, but this is the top level. This is the top of the top, and what he's very good at, dragging it to the ground, dominating, finding submissions, or at least holding back control. I'm just not so sure it'll work on TJ Dillashaw. Yeah, you did mention like Cruz was able to take him down 4 times, but like outside of that, it's like people have really struggled historically to take him down. Dillashaw, obviously, he's like 36 years old, which is pretty long in the tooth for a bantamweight, but yeah, the Sandhagen fight, he looked like he totally belonged at the top of this division still, off of the juice, all of that. Yeah, Sterling could come out like in the first Jan fight and land just an absurd amount of volume early and maybe squeeze one out that way, but yeah, we kind of saw exactly kind of how you were saying. It's just like, Jan got 7 takedowns in that spot using, judo trips and that type of thing. With Dillashaw, it's just like that. Dillashaw historically, rounds 4 and 5 were like his best. Which fight was it that he had like a 60 strike combination like down the stretch, like in the last like round or something like that?
Yeah, like Hanan Barrow just destroys him with combinations.
It may have been the Barrow fight that I'm thinking
it's a lot of his fights. Same thing with Joe Soto. He drags him to the 5th and then takes him out. It's like 160 significant strikes landed. You watch in a couple spots, he can land 150 at his best. He can land over 100. I think you're right. And you make a point there, too. It's like Petr Yan getting takedowns on Aljamain. Like, what if Dillashaw goes in and tries to offensively wrestle Aljamain for the first few rounds? What if he gets on top of him? Is Aljamain's guard so good? No, Aljamain's good on top. You haven't really seen Aljamain on his back all that much. But beyond that, if you make the first couple rounds a wrestling match, 3, 4, and 5, he's going to be tired. If you just make it a hard grind those first 2 rounds, he'll be tired. Now, Aljamain's got excellent cardio for sure. It's just, again, you got to go back and look at recency. And recently, I've been kind of fading down the stretch. So are you agreeing? Live underdog, Mr. Shaughnessy?
Live underdog. I don't know if I'm going to bet it.
Fair.
We'll see where the line goes over the course of the week. It may be lined correctly, but yeah, for the purpose of the show, I'm picking Dillashaw. Don't know if I'm going to get there from a betting perspective. Maybe, you know me, maybe, just maybe, I dip my toes in the water of like, round 4, round 5 Dillashaw props, maybe, but it's early in the week. A lot of shops haven't put out those types of props, so we'll see where I land as the week goes on. Moving on down, we got Petr Yan taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley, minus 265 Yan. O'Malley can be had for plus 225. Lots of action coming in on O'Malley, probably a combination of, him being a Twitch star and, having a global brand, having a podcast, but also, that he's capable of throwing absurd amounts of volume. And there is that narrative out there. It's not even really a narrative. Narrative is an unfair way for me to classify it. It's a fact. It's like Petr Yan tends to start slow, and he's like kind of calculating everything that his opponent is throwing at him. And this is a 3-round fight. We've seen Petr Yan in 5-round fights for the last couple years now. It's just like, yeah, it's all well and good giving up the first round or even giving up the first 2 rounds if you can steal 3, 4, and 5. Once you've got like your timing and everything. It's like in a 15-minute fight, you're down, if you're giving up the first 7.5 minutes of the fight for calculating, I could see a situation where, O'Malley out volumes early and holds on and wins a very, very close decision. I think Yan, as the fight goes on, is going to find range, is going to figure out his best path to victory in this fight. Bet365 has an absurd little thing hanging out there that I took. They've got Petr Yan by submission round 1, 2, and 3. And they've got each of them listed at 100-1. So you're getting Petr Yan by submission, which he only has 1 submission on his record. It's like early on in his career. He's not a grappler by any stretch of the imagination. But if you bet all 3 of those equally, you're getting Yan by submission at like 30, almost 33-1. I took a little bit of that. I think Petr Yan wins. I am a little bit nervous about him giving up like round 1. Maybe it's a better spot in terms of the money line to like add him live when you see him kind of figuring things out. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him like lean on some of his grappling. Like he took Aljamain Sterling down 7 times. It's like, I think if he takes Sean O'Malley down here, he can probably hold position on him. Petr Yan is the pick. Minus 265, I don't even think it's that bad. I just worry that he gives up round 1 and, my butt will be puckered if I get heavily invested on Yan minus 265. But yeah, I think he's the better fighter, and I think a lot of this O'Malley action coming in has more to do with his brand, his stardom, than it does about the 2 competitors that'll throw down on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, listen, I agree. I think when a lot of people think of Petr Yan, they still consider him the number 1 bantamweight on the planet. Yeah, sure, he lost to Aljo, but the first one, he got DQ'd, and Aljo, won an award. What an acting job. And the second one, split decision. Aljo just clung on to him. So in a lot of people's minds, it's like, yeah, the guy's still absolutely elite, capable of beating everybody. When you think about the best guys in the division, Sean O'Malley's name doesn't really pop off at the top of your head. And listen, it's a very, very talented division full of some of the best guys in it. But your Corey Sandhagens, your Aljamain Sterlings, your even guys internationally. Looking at the list, Muradov versus Petr Yan. No, against Sean O'Malley. No one's got him. Sterling, Yan, Sandhagen, Dillashaw, Chito Vera already beat him up. Rob Font probably beats him up pretty soundly. Song Yadong beats him up. Ricky Simone beats him up. Said Nurmagomedov probably beats him up. Adrian Yanez might beat him up. These guys are like top 10 guys in the world. So props to Sean O'Malley for stepping up to the plate and jumping from like rank number 11th to taking on what essentially could be the world champion. But yeah, this money line just looks too good to be true, right? I mean, this is a giant step up in competition that nobody thought he was going to do. Everyone keeps saying the UFC is protecting him and not throwing him in these spots. But the UFC's like, dog, we're paying this guy a lot of money now because he's renegotiated up his contract. He has a brand. He has a name. He needs to go out and fight legitimate guys so he gets Yan. I would expect him to be a 3-1 underdog, but yeah, maybe because of his popularity, he's hanging out at a pretty reasonable rate. Looking at the fight itself, exact same things that you're seeing is that Petr Yan tends to take the first round off. He's not above going out there and landing 10 to 15 significant strikes range and kind of losing that first round. In a 5-round fight, he can afford to do that because he knows he's got 5 rounds. In a 3-round fight, the guy's not a dummy. I don't think he's going to go out there and say, sure, I'm going to give away the first round. And even if he does give up the first round, it's not as if Sean O'Malley is necessarily the biggest starter. You saw in his last fight with Pedro Munoz, he barely got going himself until the second round, right? Kind of getting struck in spots, giving up those leg kicks. So I think if Yan just goes out there with a little more sense of urgency in the first, he probably wins every single round in this fight. If he decides to take the first round off, well, then he wins the second and the third round of this fight. In both scenarios, he wins this fight. You made an excellent point about Jan's wrestling. Jan's an underrated wrestler, and I think that he could very easily take this fight to the ground. When you look at Sean O'Malley, where his biggest weaknesses have been, guys that can dog walk him, kind of like Chris Moutinho, who was a punching bag, but again, went 3 hard rounds with him and backed him up the entire time, caused him to fight off his back foot, which I think Jan's capable of doing at an elite level. And then, of course, taking him down. Marlon Vera takes him down. You can say that he was injured, this and that and the other, but I think the ability to constantly take him down is going to compromise him, drop his head with elbows off the canvas, work him with that ground and pound. Again, Petr Yan capable of doing all those things. The UFC's done an excellent job with turning Sean O'Malley into a star. Because when you look at his record, man, on the Contender Series, he fought Alfred Kazakian, striker. In his debut, Terrion Ware, pure boxer. Then Andre Sugmantath, kickboxer. Then he got Jose Alberto Quinones. The guy's got jiu-jitsu tattooed on his chest, but straight up, you've seen him fight. He's almost all kickboxing, right? Eddie Wineland, way over the hill, boxer. Thomas Almeida, very one-dimensional striker. Chris Moutinho, punching bag. Rolian Pava, striker. Pedro Munoz, BJJ black belt, just chooses never to use it. He's always trying to go out there and strike with guys. So Yan fits the same description as everybody else. Oh, well, he's a striker. Yeah, but he's got a very, very underrated grappling game. And if he goes ahead and takes down Sean O'Malley, he's going to have tons of success there. I don't see a whole lot of worlds that he loses this fight unless he cleanly takes off the first 2 rounds. And I just don't think him and his coaching staff are going to let that happen. So, I mean, I got to go with Petr Yan to get the job done. Does he win by decision or does he win inside the distance? I'm leaning towards inside the distance. The kind of pressure and pace this guy puts on is unlike anything that Sean O'Malley's seen. If Sean O'Malley's little chicken legs don't hold up, Petr Yan's going to take advantage and slam them. He's going to slam them with ground and pound. He's going to just land clean shot standing. He does have a 4-inch height disadvantage and a 5-inch reach disadvantage. But gathering that data, he's just figuring out the timing, and then he's going to start putting the pressure on. So kudos to Sean O'Malley for stepping up to the plate. I mean, the guy's got balls, accepted this fight, and I think he's proven a lot of people wrong about how protected he is in this and that. But Petr Yan, he's on a different level, and I don't see him losing to a guy that's like a fringe top 10 contender at this point. So sign me up for the Russian.
Yeah, Petr Yan on Prize Picks, the total for takedowns is 2. I don't mind that. Don't love it. If it was 1.5, I'd be a lot more inclined to take it. The problem with taking like his takedowns there is just like there's no guarantee that he's not just gonna like go strike for strike with them, and like he could win a striking affair against literally anybody. Like that is not the least or the path of least resistance for Petr Yan, but yeah, it's a path that he could totally just win a 15-minute stand-up affair, never even attempt to take down. Something tells me he is going to try to take it down, so I may work it into some of my Prize Picks selections this week. But yeah, there's plenty of other Prize Picks that I like over the course of more on the bottom of the card, some of the more exploitable spots down there. So don't worry, we'll get you on that. They had actually somebody reached out to me, and I have a greasy theory that maybe that they work for Prize Picks, but they said that they were a big-time fan of the show, and they said, what could I match with, they had like a Steph Curry prop last night, where Steph Curry, if he got over 1 point, or over half a point, so he scores a point, and that leg wins. And I told them Aljamain Sterling, his takedowns was listed at 2.5. I'm like, that's way too much. I'm like, he could get there, but like I thought, TJ's only ever been taken down that many times once, and it was by Dominic Cruz, who has some of the best footwork in MMA, and probably tricked him and was able to get him down to the ground in that way. Sterling could get there. But yeah, it moved from 2.5 to 2. Still don't mind it, but like 2.5, those extra hooks are obviously pretty key. But yeah, Sterling under 2 takedowns, don't mind it either. TJ Dillashaw is very, very tough to take down. And that's where I think me and you were kind of on the same page about, is like, if Sterling's not able to get this fight to the mat, like on the feet, it's a hell of a lot more of 50-50 with all of the power and everything like that on Dillashaw's side. Let's move on to the fourth fight, though. We've got Mateusz Gamrot taking on Beneil Dariush. Gamrot, a -190 favorite. Dariush can be had for +165. Cody, take it away.
Yeah, Beneil Dariush, very high ring IQ, one of the best guys in that department, solving a way how to win. He's got excellent jiu-jitsu. Of course, he's got solid striking. And if he can't use his jiu-jitsu to win, he'll bite down on his mouthpiece and swang and bang with you. But in this case, it seems like recently he's been winning his fights with his takedowns. He needs to land those takedowns. His last fight with Tony Ferguson, he only landed 23 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes. But it was the 3 takedowns, the positional dominance. Well, Tony's shown he gives up a whole lot of takedowns, and he's not allowed to. He doesn't have a great ability to scramble back up to his feet. So I feel like he was able to exploit that one issue with Tony Ferguson. Same thing in his fight before that, Carlos Diego Ferreira. He got those 5 takedowns. You go back to a whole lot of his fights, and it's just multiple takedowns, not a whole lot of ground and pound, not a whole lot of significant strikes landed. Stand-up wise, he's got a nasty body kick. He'll throw a decent little combination, but it's always with the end goal of setting up that takedown. Mateusz Gamrot, I don't know what version I'm going to get, but if I get the last version of him, and not the version we got 2 fights back, I think he's sitting in a really good spot here. Arman Tsarukyan is a fantastic grappler, a fantastic wrestler in his own right. He went 1 for 8 in takedowns against Gamrot, who overall shows a 90% takedown defense in the UFC. He's a Polish wrestling standout. He's a BJJ black belt, a guy that competed at a very high level. He's a problem taking down. He's a problem holding down. If Beneil Dariush isn't capable of doing that, he's still going to have a lot of success striking with him standing. My worry is the volume. Beneil doesn't have these performances where he goes out and throws up a ton of strikes. It's mostly just a couple at a time. Whereas Gamrot, at his worst, a little reluctant to let his hands go. At his best, I think he's got a whole lot of forward pressure, moving you back. He would have lost the Tsarukyan fight if it was a 3-rounder. Because it was a 5-rounder, he kind of got bailed out. He needs to go pedal to the metal right off the get-go versus Beneil Dariush, who's capable of stealing a few rounds. But I do feel like that grind, that pressure, Gamrot's getting a lot more comfortable, and you should see a much better version of him. Again, when I say 2 fights back was Beneil Dariush on paper looks good. He submitted Carlos Diego Ferreira. Sorry, he put a beating on Carlos Diego Ferreira, and it was second round. It was like a rib injury TKO, but he looked tired up until he got the stoppage. It didn't look like his cardio was holding up. He looked super sluggish. And then one fight later versus Tsarukyan, he goes 5 hard rounds, where 4 and 5 are by far his best rounds of the fight. Part of me thinks that, he's got his cardio resolved. He's a lot more comfortable in the UFC. He's positioning himself for these big fights, and he should be able to go out there and just put on a clean performance, stuff the takedowns, back him up, pressure him, land some strikes, and edge out Beneil Dariush. I do think Dariush is a live underdog. I think Gamrot at times doesn't fight to the best of his abilities. You, of course, cashed that notorious ticket, Gurem Kudalits. On the same thing, Kudalits is a fast starter, and Gamrot's a bit of a slow starter. So similar situation that we're talking about Petr Yan. You got a guy here that's incredibly skillful, but tends to get off to slow starts. This is a 3-round fight. Beneil could catch him sleeping, but I feel like Gamrot and them will have the right plan, get the job done. So I don't have him super high this week because I think Beneil Dariush could be an apple pie shitter kind of guy, coming in here and spoil the day. But the pick is Gamrot. I'm going to ride with him.
Yeah, this one I've been kind of torn on all week, to be perfectly honest. It really comes down to the wrestling. I think if it's on the feet, I've seen more from Gamrot to lead me to believe that, one, we've all kind of forgotten about Beneil Dariush's chin. Like, it was a while ago, but, like, there was a period of time there where everyone thought, just another busted prospect. This guy can't take punishment. The Alexander Hernandez fight, the Edson Barbosa fight. And you've been clipped.
Even the Drakkar Klose
fight,
man. I mean, Klose got no punching power, and he has them on skates, and then he gets knocked out.
So, like, that Gamrot fight against Holtzman kind of leads me to believe that there could be a little bit of pop back there, which would lead me towards picking Mateusz Gamrot as a favorite in this spot. I feel like wrestling is probably going to get negated. We're in a relatively big cage, so I don't know if Dariush is going to be able to track him down, take him down. Speed should lie on the side of Gamrot. And I think his grappling's good enough that if he does get taken down, at least he can hang out there and stay out of trouble. I think Gamrot's a rightful favorite. I don't know if I'm going to get to it on the betting window either, but Gamrot's the pick for me as well. Moving on down, we got Manon Fiorot taking on Katlyn Chookagian, minus 210 Fiorot, plus 180 for Katlyn Chookagian. Interesting fight again. I mean, I think Manon Fiorot is the best woman in the division, not named Valentina Shevchenko. Heading into that Maia fight, I remember on Twitter that week, there was everyone thought that they had seen something at the weigh-ins, that Fiorot had injured her leg or injured her knee. Whether that was true or not, she ended up showing up and put on a pretty solid performance against Jennifer Maia. She's been rolling through everybody in this division with relative ease, like winning very, very convincing decisions. And frankly, Chookagian last time out against Ramanda Ribas, that was not a convincing decision. A lot of people scored it for Ribas. Ribas got 3 takedowns. I think Fiorot's got enough of a complete game plan that, one, she can hang out at range. She's super, super quick in and out of the pocket. She lands the more powerful strikes of the two of them. I think maybe on top of that, I think she could probably mix in the odd takedown. She won't hold her down for very long, but to steal rounds, secure rounds, Pat Mayo's not in the room. Pat would probably just say blind take the underdog in this spot. But I think Fiorot's the real deal. I'm not hopping off of her here. Katlyn Chookagian has been in the top 5 of this division for, since its inception. But I don't know. The style of, she throws a lot of volume, not much with any impact, and tons of hiyas and kyas and a bunch of other utterances that sometimes they sway the judges, but Manon Fiorot's got her own Kias cooking on her side. So I think Fiorot's just the better fighter, literally in every aspect of the game at this point. And looking forward to seeing her taking on Shevchenko, because I think that'll be the most interesting fight in the division in quite a bit. I mean, obviously Shevchenko's last fight out was not supposed to be so interesting. It turned out to be interesting. But I think Fiorot is actually like the legit problem in the division that could cause problems for Valentina Shevchenko. So I think she rolls here. What about you?
Yeah, likely rolls, but I can't say I got a whole lot of confidence in this one for no other reason than love Fiorot, don't get me wrong, but what's the game plan likely? She's going to go out there and she's going to try to strike with her because, she's really agile, she's mobile, likes to stay to the outside, likes to put up volume. It's like, are you describing Fiorot or are you describing Katlyn Chookagian? Because it's going to be a tit for tat 15-minute striking battle where both of them land in the neighborhood of 80, 90 significant strikes. Could be a split decision. Could be hotly contested. Again, it's going to come down to who the judges are. The judges are watching this cage side. One of them is making a lot of action noises, sounds like a tennis match. Kya, kya, kya. Sometimes that resonates with you. There's been a lot of times where it's like, has this person won the fight? But that noise kind of allows you to get the benefit of the doubt. Holly Holm, former world champion, again, very active with that. Fiorot has that karate type style where she's very mobile, stay to the outside. It's a lot of touch and go. She's got that big head kick. She's got some big singular strikes, but for the most part, it's touch and go, right? It's outpointing your opponent. Katlyn Chookagian is kind of masterful in that area. Katlyn Chookagian's also got a big experience advantage, I would say. But yeah, I'm pretty sold on Fiorot. Physically, she's extremely strong. Katlyn Chookagian's had a chance to fight all the best girls in the division and show what she's got. Fiorot, meanwhile, she comes into the UFC with a handful of pro MMA fights, and since then has more or less fought in some pretty high level competitors and look clean doing it. You see her get a little confident, a little more confident every time out, a little more comfortable every time out. And I feel like they're trying to build her towards that Shevchenko title fight. Initially, they're talking, Manon Fiorot maybe against Jessica Andrade, and she's game for that. Katlyn Chookagian's come in as a replacement opponent, and then they move the fight all the way to Abu Dhabi. So I think that Fiorot could get the job done. Again, though, if we're talking about a 15-minute fight, which is likely going 15, we're looking at a purely stand-up battle, which could very well be a purely stand-up battle. They're both strikers. They're both going to put up big volume. They're both going to be competitive. It's one of those fights that you lock in that you really like Fiorot, and it ends up being a split decision. Hopefully you win that split decision. But a lot of the times it goes the other way and you're not happy about it. But what can you do? You picked on a closely contested fight. Angela Hill's in these all the time, right? Could she win? Yeah. If she does win, it's by the skin of your teeth. And if she loses, by the skin of your teeth. If you can get her for plus money, bet Angela Hill all day. If Angela Hill's the favorite, do not go anywhere close to her. Katlyn Chookagian to me feels the same boat. I wouldn't bet her as a favorite, no way. But in this plus money spot where I think it's going to be a relatively competitive 15-minute striking affair, I think she could pull it off. But again, I got two dogs at the top of the card. I'm picking a whole lot of favorites from this point out. And unfortunately, Manon Fiorot ended up being another one of those favorites.
All right, we got Sean Brady taking on Belal. Remember the name Muhammad? Sean Brady is a minus 130 favorite. Muhammad can be had for plus 110. Cody, who do you got?
So I will actually take another flyer here on Belal Muhammad as the underdog. I think Belal Muhammad's style is not exactly the most fan appeasing. And so for that matter, there's this bias of just people don't like him, right? But man, he is highly effective with what he does. His pace is second to none. The guy's got excellent cardio. Striking was his forte, not a power puncher, but someone that's just going to continuously put pressure on you. You see him getting a lot cleaner in there. His technique obviously getting much improved, but it's that ability to use his wrestling. That kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't realize he was such an accomplished grappler until, say, a bunch of them. Damian Maia took him down, wasn't able to do anything with it. He took down Stephen Thompson 7 times at will. He took down Vicente Luque 5 times at will. The last Luque fight was a 5-round fight. So, he showed pace the whole way through. He's got a solid chin on him. So, he's one of those guys that's just going to continuously pose problems. Sean Brady, meanwhile, very, very talented guy, but seems to prefer to get it done with his own wrestling. I don't see him taking down Belal Muhammad. Now, his striking is actually better than Belal Muhammad's. Here's the difference. Belal's one of these guys that's geared up to go a hard 15 on the feet if need be. Sean Brady, it seems like he's got some fancy strikes up his sleeve, but always relies on trying to get the fight down eventually. Now, he's been able to out-grapple a lot of these younger opponents he's been taking on. Michael Chiesa, that's a big feather in his cap win, but Michael Chiesa doesn't have that same physicality that Belal does, and if he does, it's early. Chiesa is dangerous early. The longer that you can prolong him, he tends to tire. Belal's going to be in your face the entire time. Now, I don't know why Khabib Nurmagomedov decided to drop everything he was doing and help Belal Muhammad prepare for this fight, but he's been getting some real good work with Khabib, and a lot of that, to me, is he'll be ready for whatever Brady shoots at him with his own offensive wrestling, and he's going to be ready to grind on Brady with his own pace, tenacity, slow him down, make this a greasy fight. But Belal Muhammad's been thriving in those kind of situations, so I am actually going to pick him at plus 115. I'm a huge Sean Brady fan, But again, there's going to be a few underdogs that are going to pop up here and there. And I think Belal Muhammad has got an excellent chance of getting it done. And I don't want to talk about the narrative of they're in Abu Dhabi and his name is Belal Muhammad and he's rocking a beard and Khabib's with him. But if it's a close decision, we're getting it. So, yeah, it can't hurt, right? They don't like tattoos in Abu Dhabi, and Sean Brady is one walking tattoo. So, yeah. Sign me up for Belal Muhammad to grease out the close decision.
I like that. Hey, that's a greasy angle. Fade tattoos on this. Sean O'Malley, The Walking Dead, basically.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. And I haven't bet it yet, but like Belal's just so smart in there. He just doesn't really make any serious mistakes. He finds his game plan and he sticks to it from the beginning. And he's cost me a bunch of money in the process of doing that. Like Vicente Luque, I thought Vicente Luque was going to cause problems for him in the grappling department when he got down there. And no. Just like as soon as he was flat on his back, he had nothing for Belal. Belal was just able to continuously keep going to that and, lay on top of him, throw enough strikes to not get stood up. And on the feet, he's, outside of getting knocked out in the first time that he fought against Vicente Luque. And then obviously the Leon Edwards, eye poke. That fight was not going well for him. Yeah. But like that's the 170-pound champion. I mean, this really comes down to a numbers thing for me. And it's just like Sean Brady really, he really hasn't been tested against the top of the division yet. And Belal's been hanging out in this, top 10 for quite a bit of time now. And he's handled himself quite well. So if you put a plus 110 next to his name, I'm going to be remembering that name, I suppose you could say. Belal Muhammad is the pick for both of us. We move on down the card. We got Caio Borralho taking on Makhmud Muradov. Minus 190, Borralho. Makhmud Muradov can be had for plus 165. Watching a bunch of Caio's fights back, he's so, it's like watching paint dry. He's so boring in some of these spots, but he's so effective at what he does. In the Armen Petrosian fight, it's just like, he only throws strikes. Like he'll throw like the odd flying knee, but it's just like they're mostly singular strikes with like lots of feints mixed in, and it's all about getting down to your hips. And if he's not able to get like a double leg takedown on you, it's about sliding to the back. And once he gets that backpack, he is so good down there. You can tell he's put in so many years training. There's like pictures of him and Damian Maia back to like 2015. This kid's slick on the ground. And you got Muradov, who, he's signed by like Floyd's company or whatever. Decent striker, but we saw against Gerald Mearshart. It's just like he hurt Gerald a couple times, but it's like about 5 minutes of like a high intensity fight like that, and he was falling to bits. Round 2, once he gets taken down, he basically just like insta-taps when Gerald was able to take him down to the mat. Caio, from what I've seen, when he takes shots, he takes them well. The entries to the takedowns look pretty solid, and his positional grappling on the mat is super, super good. The Gadzhi versus Caio fight too. It's like I was pretty impressed that he was able to do all of this to a guy with a beard. Like that is no easy task, and Caio passed it with flying colors. Like, is it boring? Yes. Is it effective? 100%. Caio by sub is plus 400, plus 460 is the highest out there. I think Makhmud Muradov could have some success early in the striking affair, but like Caio's going to get him to the mat. Caio's going to find his way to the back, and I think Caio's going to lock in a rear naked choke and finish this fight off probably in round 2, maybe round 3. What's your take here, buddy?
Yeah, I got to agree. I really like Caio this week, and I think that the price is right on a minus 200. I feel like people were going to jump on the bandwagon eventually, but it's like you said, he doesn't really have a particularly fan-friendly style, and so I think people just don't utterly care about him. But I've been high on him for a little while. He came on the Contender Series. He fought our Canadian boy, Aaron Jeffries, and I bet him that night on the basis of he's got really high ring IQ. He's known as like the fighting nerd. He comes in the glass. I haven't seen a whole lot of nerds with neck tats, by the way. The guy's pretty badass as far as I'm concerned, but yeah, he's the smart thinking style fighter. And against Jeffries, I mean, he really showed a complete package. He's in really good shape. He has good striking. He has good grappling. He's just not one of those guys that's going to exert himself and put him into bad positions. Jeffries gone on to quite a good career since then in Bellator. Caio, meanwhile, continuously gets stronger and stronger. He took a short notice fight against Jesse Murray on the Contender Series again because Dana didn't give him the contract after Jeffries, who's up to 205 on a week's notice. Smashes this I don't know, putts of a 205er, by the way, but he jumped up 20 pounds on a week's notice. The guy's a badass. Now, both of his wins in the UFC haven't been walkovers. You talked about Omargadzhiev, a tough Russian style fighter, and then with Armen Petrosyan. Petrosyan had just fought RoboCop and had given him everything he could handle. He had been taken down quite a few times. He'd given up his back. But I mean, he showed against Gregory Rodriguez, holding him down, and his scrambling abilities, solid. This guy's a solid prospect. None of that was on display with Caio. Caio got him down exactly when he wanted, and this guy wasn't going anywhere. He's one of these guys that just melts like cheese on top of you. There's no space. There's nowhere to go. Again, he's doing enough to not get stood up, but if it ain't getting stood up, you ain't getting up on your own merit. Those are all going to be massive problems. Makhmud Muradov, I'm going to kind of classify him into the maybe like the fraud ranks, I think. Coming into the UFC, he was known for two things. You nailed one of them. He was signed by Floyd Mayweather's company. He's the only MMA fighter that was on the roster. Thing number two, he was like a Czech webcam boy. He used to beat his meat for money on webcam. So they told him, you can't be in this country no more. He's banned from Uzbekistan and Czechoslovakia. Comes over here, might as well be an MMA fighter. Thing is, they matched him up cheap, and he never really soared. The Alicio Di Chirico fight, low volume. Yeah, he can strike, but was kind of not a great performance. Him versus Trevor Smith, he got the third round knockout. He landed some okay shots in that fight, but Trevor Smith's not really somebody you should be hanging around with into the third round. His fight with Andrew Sanchez is not great. It's beyond that, right? He pulls out of this fight with Kevin Holland due to an injury. That Gerald Mearshart fight, he wins the first round. He looked good in the first round. Then he completely gassed out after that. And then since he lost to Mearshart, gas is hard, dude. I had Muradov that night. After the first round, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. But you could see his body language around the 3 or 4 minute mark. He's tired, right? 32 years old, not old, but I don't know that he's a mega prospect that's suddenly going to get a whole lot better. His best days were beating up, regional talent on the regional scene. That Mearshart fight to me was the eye opener. Push a pace on this guy and take him down. Mearshart scored 3 takedowns, outclassed him handedly on the ground, tired him out, subbed him. But then in 2 subsequent performances, he got booked against Misha Cherkinov, pulled out due to a hand injury. They booked him 7 months later against Abus Magomedov. He pulled out of that fight as well. Now they've booked him 2 months after that. I think he's damaged goods, man. He's not someone that fights a whole lot. He doesn't have a regular schedule. He showed in his last fight against Mearshart's cardio is not all that good. And I think part of that is dealing with injuries, being on the sideline, having that ring rust, having to jump back in there. It's all problematic. So with Caio Borralho, yeah, he's going to replicate exactly what Mearshart did. He's stronger than Mearshart. He's got better takedowns than Mearshart. And I mean, again, he's got a top-class, world-class jiu-jitsu game. So I think he's just going to employ it all very effectively. Is he going to win inside the distance? Is he going to win by decision? I think by decision. Submissions live, as you mentioned. The straight up for -200, I'm not even going to get greedy on it. I'll just pick him to get the job done, and that's what I think he's going to do.
We got Nikita Krylov taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Krylov, a -170 favorite. Oezdemir can be had for +145. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention on the previous one that Caio, if you like decision, you may not like it, but Caio's fantasy points are at 80.5. Just based on takedowns are 6 points, and submission attempts are 5 points. It's just if this guy's going to take him down, try to submit him. If he gets a finish in the first 2 rounds, you're going to win that over 80.5 fantasy score. But even if he gets 4 or 5 takedowns, mixes in some submissions and a little bit, gets a decision win, he could probably still get there. So I think I looked at some of the other props. The takedowns was a little bit tricky because what if he takes him down immediately and submits him? You won't really get there. Significant strikes, wasn't so sure. I think the fantasy score for Caio Borralho was my favorite way to approach that. Didn't want to pass by that without mentioning that, but move on to the next one. Yeah, we got Krylov taking on Oezdemir, -170 Krylov, +145 Oezdemir. Prize picks, I do have Krylov less than 1.5 takedowns. He has shown flashes. Let's not forget that, this guy has shown flashes of some wrestling ability, but this guy is listed as a Kyokushin karate fighter. He's taking down Johnny Walker, which, I mean, Johnny Walker's worked on his ground game, and the ground game's come along to a bit of a degree that he's not so bad off of his back anymore. But go through Volkan. Volkan's been putting in time in Florida there for so many years with a great room of wrestlers. There's only one man who has cleared 1.5 takedowns on Volkan Oezdemir. Cody, do you know who that is?
Cormier?
Daniel Cormier got 2 takedowns on him. That's it. That's it. And, I mean, Volkan, his last time out, what do you think was his entire game plan against Paul Craig is don't get taken down. So the guy's been putting in tons of work on his takedown defense. He can be a little bit low volume on the feet, which makes me a little bit worried from a betting perspective. I'm going to lean towards Volkan in this spot. I think both of them are relatively clunky strikers. Nikita, against Gustafsson. Gustafsson was such damaged goods there that I think if anybody just came in swinging like he did, they were going to put Alexander Gustafsson away on that night. A little bit less easy to do that against a guy like Volkan, who slows down the pace of the fight, makes you fight his fight. And yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult to take down. So if the Krylov's game plan is to do that, good luck, buddy. I'm leaning towards Volkan as an underdog in this spot. What's your take here, Cody?
I am going to go with the favorite, Nikita Krylov, for no other fact than, Volkan looked awful his last fight against
I thought he looked great against Paul Craig.
No, I thought he looked abysmal.
He did everything
Maybe
he had to
the
do.
Takedowns. I don't know. Paul Craig's one of these guys that his fights end in the first round. He either flops to his back and submits you, or you punch him in the face and he topples over. That's it, bro. There's no other way. In what world is somebody going to win a decision against Paul Craig? That world doesn't exist. Only Volkan goes in there and fights him for 15 minutes. And again, I don't even think he looked all that good. Paul Craig doesn't have any striking and couldn't get him down. Say it again?
I said over 15.
That
was Paul Craig's wrestling.
Paul Craig can't wrestle. So I'm telling you, bro. He's a good jiu-jitsu guy. He's got no takedowns.
I think Nikita's wrestling's pretty overrated too.
Yeah, well, no, but I don't think Nikita Krylov needs his wrestling to get the job done.
He doesn't.
I would think I would think he just strikes with him. Volkan Oezdemir is tough, but again, this is not taking anything away from him. He should have lost that Alexander Rakic fight, and that would have made him 2-6 in his last 8 fights. So yeah, Cormier beat him, and then Anthony Smith embarrassed him, and then Dominic Reyes beat him in a stinker of a fight. Rakic should have beat him, outstruck him, took him down. I don't know how Alexander Rakic didn't win that fight. Yuri Petrosky knocks him out. Makhmud Ankalaev knocks him down, and then he gets the Paul Craig fight. So Petrosky knocked him out, and he looked good in that fight till he got knocked out. And then the knockdown from Ankalaev, part of me is I'm worried about his chin. Can he still take that punch? I mean, he's a stand-up guy. He's known for his big power. The guy's called no time. You look at those early fights in the UFC, he knocks guys out in 30 seconds. But now he can't knock out Paul Craig over the course of 15 minutes? What's up with that? He's not sitting down on his punches as much. I think he's getting a little bit older. I think he's not quite as interested as he used to be. And the thing with Krylov is Krylov's got a terrible gas tank, but it's not like Volkan's got a great gas tank of his own. So I'm a little bit thinking if Krylov goes out there, he's going to be the faster man. He can beat you to the punch. I didn't expect him to bum rush Alexander Gustafsson his last time out. But I mean, he just has that instinct. I can get a quick jump on this guy. Once he has you hurt, he's not going to let up. He could take a similar approach here. Get that quick jump on Volkan, hurt him with something, and then just never lay up. If he goes for that be killed approach, I think he can knock him out. He could also die trying, right? Tire himself out, maybe get hit with something. But with Krylov, yeah, I mean, he shows glimmers of promise. He shows some bad spots. But again, this is a talented guy that's still trying to put it all together. With Volkan, I truly believe his best days, he was a title challenger. He was a top 5 guy. He's not that guy anymore. He's slowly skidding down the rankings, and I just feel like Krylov's going to catch him with something. So I will go with Nikita Krylov, but yeah, 205ers, heavy-hitting guys. Krylov's one of these guys that tends to shit an apple pie or two in his day. Could you be a whole lot confident in? Maybe not. But I got a feeling that Nikita Krylov is just a better fighter at this point.
He makes really bad decisions, Cody.
terrible decisions. But again, terrible decisions against top level guys. Like he fell into Paul Craig.
Against Paul Craig. The guy Paul Craig, who you just said that Volkan looked horrible. Volkan looked horrible, outstriking him 2-1, stopping 15 takedowns. But now Paul Craig is all of a sudden some brilliant fighter who submitted Krylov in round 1. When Krylov decided, okay, how can I lose this fight? Okay, if I just go down into Paul Craig's guard and get submitted, this is the only way I lose this fight because I already have this guy hurt. That was like, never lay chalk on Krylov after that stunt that he pulled against Paul Craig. That's all I'm saying.
Well, all I'm saying is if most people's opinions, if you're like, who's the best light heavyweight in the world right now? John Jones is not a light heavyweight anymore. Keep that in mind. It's like, who's the best light heavyweight in the world right now? They'd be like, dude, Nurmagomedov is the best light heavyweight. It's like, dude, Paul Craig choked that guy out. And who's like the next best guy? It's like, well, maybe Yuri, maybe Glover, or maybe it's Jamal Hill, man. That guy's legit. It's like, yeah, well, he did the same thing. He went right into Paul Craig's guard. Nikita Krylov, he had him knocked out, bro. Paul Craig was out. And then he made the mistake of hanging in his guard. Don't go to his guard.
Volkan never even let it come
like a
to that.
Ziploc bag. Air goes in it. Don't come back out.
I'm taking the smarter fighter at plus 145. The guy who is going to mind his P's and Q's, put himself in the best position to come out victorious. Am I actually going to put money on Volkan Oezdemir? That remains to be seen. But it sounds like we're split on this one. You like Krylov. I like Oezdemir. Do we have do we want to do a bet on this or something? We haven't done a bet on anything.
Yeah, all right. Let's get a shoey bet going for this.
Since Aspen Ladd went running.
Nikita of Krylov. Aspen Ladd, yeah.
You can have Krylov. I'll take the dog, Volkan. That keeps me interested without financially, Volkan can be a little bit low volume. The chin isn't exactly perfect. Like, this is not some sort of like lock of the century by any stretch of the imagination. Don't even know if I'm gonna bet it, but yeah, underdog for me. Cody likes Krylov, and there is a shoey on the line for next week's episode. Moving on down, we got Tukhugov taking on Lucas Almeida. Tukhugov is a minus 160 favorite. Almeida can be had for plus 140. Not going to lie, Cody, this is the one fight I haven't got around to tape on yet. So I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll make my selection. But did a pretty good job of, my dog's being less of an idiot recently. So it's like I'm finding windows of time to start getting into tape again. But yeah, Tukhugov, Almeida. I really got to watch Lucas Almeida's fight versus Mike Trizano before I really consolidate a pick here. Do you have a hard lean in this one or what?
Yeah, well, so Lucas Almeida, the guy coming on the Contender Series, just like, bro, this guy just throws down. Like, he's got some pretty big power, but is he well rounded? Yeah, maybe not. But his fight with that Daniel Zellhuber, who was supposed to be a decent prospect, turned out to be a bust. Who loses to Trey Ogden in a striking match? Anyways, it's like, okay, you go out there. He throws up good volume. He shows some big things, but he sits down on way too many of his punches, tires himself out, and then Zellhuber comes down the stretch. You can see that there was something there. You can see that this guy could probably hang out in the UFC. However, yeah, he's a little bit reckless. He needs a ways to go. He won one fight in the regional scene for Jungle Fight. They bring him back versus Mike Trizano. He looked awesome, dude. The thing with Trizano is that he tends to walk forward most of the time. Most of the opponents that he faces will not push him back. And yet against Lucas Almeida was the one that was just the aggressor the entire time. He dropped Trizano twice. He doubled him up on the punching stats, which is very hard to do with Mike Trizano. And he made Trizano just not look at all like he belonged in the UFC, which is something that Trizano's a tough guy. He's been in some relatively competitive fights with a lot of guys. To me, again, this is Almeida getting more comfortable and getting better. He didn't look bad in the Contender Series, but he knew Dana White standing right there and will not give you a contract unless you go for it. So he went for it. Didn't work in that spot, but you can see that there's something to work with. And that fight with Trizano, to me, anyways, it looked like, okay, he's getting way more comfortable. He's tying it together. His cardio checked out in there where he was just continuously allowed to push that kind of pace. And the guy's very, very heavy-handed. Now, Zubaira Tukhugov could beat this guy, of course. Here's the thing with Tukhugov. Do not trust Zubaira Tukhugov. He's a guy with a ton of promise, doesn't put it together. First of all, criminally low on the striking numbers. Him versus Douglas D'Andrade, he landed 35 over 15. Mm-hmm. Him versus Felipe Nover, 21 over the course of 15. Him versus Renato Moicano, 29 over 15. Him versus Lerone Murphy, 22 over the course of 15. Him versus Hakeem Dawodu, 35 over 15. Yeah, he looked better against Ricardo Ramos his last time out, but he's just a very low volume guy. And as a result, his fight with Nova was a split decision. His fight with Moicano was a split decision. His fight with Lerone Murphy was a split decision. His fight with Hakeem Dawodu was a split decision. He's had 4 split decisions. 3 of them he'd come out on the losing end of. And I had a greasy theory. Tukhugov is Khabib's boy, and they're in Abu Dhabi, and he's going to get the decision in a close fight. No, he was in Abu Dhabi against Hakeem Dawodu, and it was a close fight. But he didn't do shit, and the judges recognized that, and they did not give him the split decision win. He, in fact, lost the split decision. So as much as the guy's got a lot of talent, I think he could go out there and secure takedowns over Almeida and really make him pay. Part of me is worried that he's just going to let the volume kind of get behind him. If it was Tukhugov plus money, I think I would be, I would get like goaded into maybe being like, oh, well, the takedowns and maybe the kid's been improving and super talented. Maybe he's finally going to put it all together. And, he finally did throw a little more volume in his last fight with Ramos. I could be tricked into it. But that slight money on Lucas Almeida, I think, has got me tempted that just keep the fight standing and outwork him, man. That is the move. And I think Almeida is capable of doing it. So, really slight underdog lean towards Lucas Almeida.
And I'm going to join you on that slight underdog lean. But it's possible that I change that after watching Almeida's fights back. But wasn't lining up to bet Tukhugov. Yeah, as for all the same reasons that you said, that the volume is just super, super low with him. I'm not, he wrestles with those guys, but I don't really consider him, on the level with, the best coming out of, Khabib and his gym and all of that. He's Chechen, not Dagestani. I don't think he grew up with, the same wrestling pedigree and around the same wrestlers as, a Makhachev or a Cousin Umar or anything like that. So he's a solid all-around fighter. He's taken on some really, good opponents, Lerone Murphy and Dawodu and so on and so forth. But yeah, not a guy I'm very, very high on. So I'll ever so slightly lean to the underdog with you on Lucas Almeida. Moving on down, we got Abubakar Nurmagomedov taking on Gadzhi Omargadzhiev. Minus 165, Abubakar. Plus 145, Gadzhi. Is this fight at 170?
Yeah, I believe it's a 170.
Which I believe is Gadzhi's first time there. And honestly, I think this fight is wrong fighter favored. What has Abubakar done besides have the Nurmagomedov name in the UFC to really to justify having this price? Jared Gooden was only able to take him down once. It was a very, very tepid, close striking affair between the two of them for 15 minutes. And then the ultimate stunt coming in there with the Nurmagomedov name against David Zawada in your UFC debut, and then just what it was an armbar. I believe it was an armbar. A triangle choke. Sorry, I watched it. I just can't really recall the exact transition. Either way, it was like an insta tap as soon as they got down there. I've always kind of called Abubakar bad Nurmi. I think he's the guy who's there to help the guys get through their training camps, put in some work with them. He'll pick up some skills, but he's never really been the most skilled guy. His entries to his takedowns, they could be effective. It could work. A lot of people are going to look at Gadzhi getting taken down by Caio Borralho and glean off of that. And maybe that's why they're going with it. But it's as we've already said, it's we actually think that Caio Borralho's pretty solid. The fact that this is down at 170 on top of it, I didn't even know that. I didn't really put 2 and 2 together on that, but I had already added Gadzhi Omargadzhiev plus 150 on the money line. And honestly, if you watch his Contender Series fight, obviously that's a super, super low level of competition, but he's pretty slick with his submissions as well. And Borralho had him on the ground tons of times, and his submission defense was pretty solid. There's 9-1 on Gadzhi's by submission available out there. It's if David Zawada was able to do it, I wouldn't be stunned for Gadzhi to be able to pull it off. So, yeah, Gadzhi money line, Gadzhi plus 900. If Khabib is in the corner of Abubakar, I would say that the O has got to go, and this will be the first time Khabib will be in a corner and one of his fighters will lose. Hot take or not? Who do you got here?
Yeah, super live. If you look at Khabib and his 3 fighting family members, they combine for an astonishing 75-3-1 record. Like unreal, right? Khabib's got 29-0, and Umar is 15-0, and Usman Nurmagomedov is 15-0. And Abubakar actually counts for all the losses in the draw. He's 16-3-1, which is a dope record. But yeah, when you're talking about the Nurmagomedov legacy, Khabib's 29-0, right? Umar Nurmagomedov, Usman Nurmagomedov, both 15-0. They both seem to have a whole lot of promise. Abubakar, yeah, not quite in the same boat. When he fought for PFL World Series of Fighting, I didn't think he was all that good. His wrestling's not all that good. His striking is not all that good. He clearly isn't at that level, but he's getting in world-class rounds with world-class guys. And, surely he's going to be effective in some ways. But, yeah, I think he's waiting to get caught by somebody. If you can stuff the takedowns, keep it standing, he's there to get hit. The thing with Omargadzhiev, first of all, I got to see him at 170 pounds. I'd like to see him make weight, see how he makes the weight. The other thing is, he had no answer to Caio Borralho taking him down and holding him down. In fact, that fight was third round technical decision because Borralho murdered him with an illegal knee, lost a point, and still won the fight.
It was super illegal.
It was so illegal.
But like that fight, the writing was already on the wall. It's like Borralho
kicked his ass.
Didn't need to do that. He absolutely controlled him. But like Caio's good at that. He's incredibly talented at that slow-paced, hold you and win position type of style of fight.
Yeah, this is true. And then, like I said, I'm picking him on the card. And I think he's one of the better value guys, even though he's minus 200, because I'm very high at what he does. And I think he's got excellent ring IQ, despite the illegal knee to a downed opponent. The guy's a very smart, calculated guy. Mm-hmm. In this case, yeah, which I don't know with Abubakar. Listen, they're both probably most comfortable grappling. I would say that Omargadzhiev has a better stand-up game, but for 15 minutes, I'm not entirely sure. And with Abubakar, I don't know. He outstruck Jared Gooden on one hand. It's like Gooden's got big power. He minded his P's and Q's in that fight. He played a smart game plan. I just keep going back to like the David Zawada fight. He's a master, huge favorite in his UFC debut and gives up a bum triangle choke, right? Like, I don't know that he's the complete package. I think he is a little bit fraudulent and he's going to get caught from somebody. But Omargadzhiev, not exactly a world beater. I mean, he could potentially lay an egg himself. So I wouldn't want a whole lot of investment on this one, but I think as of right now, I'm leaning towards Omargadzhiev, like you're saying. Coming down from 85 to 170, he should have that strength advantage. That in itself should be enough to hopefully keep this fight standing. And if he can keep this fight standing, I don't know that his volume is all that good, but I think that he's got the power to clip him, get his respect, make something happen. It's a dog or pass situation. Maybe it'd be wise to just pass altogether. But if you want to ride with another underdog, we'll go Omargadzhiev.
I'm already on the underdog, Cody, and I got him by. There's actually plus 1050s out there for some people with sports books. If you have books, multiple different options, which is always the best thing for you to do. There's plus 1050s on Gadzhi by submission, which is not crazy. Like it's possible. I think that Nurmagomedov name is really like keeping the number down on a lot of that. But on Prize Picks, Abubakar's got like a takedown number set at 1.5. Don't mind that. Prefer less than 80.5 in his fantasy score. I mean, if it plays out like the Gooden fight, it's like he didn't get anywhere close to that number with a decision win over Jared Gooden. One takedown, 60 significant strikes. It's just like it's way, way under. Based on like his skill set and what Gadzhi's able to do to combat that, I really struggle unless he's pulling off like a first round finish, which I haven't really seen anything from Gadzhi to lead me to believe that he's like chinny or something like that. I really don't see how Abubakar gets over 80 significant, 80 on the fantasy score there. So quite enjoy that. I could see him getting
that's a good angle.
I could see him getting like to 2 takedowns and those 2 takedowns being like generally meaningless, but like actually taking him down, holding him down, controlling, getting submissions. It's like I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think he's gonna be able to dominate those exchanges. He may have like the more, classic technical striking, but like Gadzhi throws some like wild stuff at you, and it's kind of like straight jabs versus some looping shots, I suppose. But the more damaging strikes should be coming from Gadzhi, in my opinion. But yeah, Abubakar, it's just like, 80 fantasy score. I just think that's way, way too high for him. Like, he's not just going to, like, take Gadzhi down at will and just control him and dominate him pillar to post in this fight. And that's what he would have to do if he wanted a decision to get over 80 points.
Well, yeah, even to win all 3 rounds with takedowns, you still need the ground and pound. You still need the submission attempts, and I just don't know if he's going to come to that. But,
yeah.
I mean, keep in mind, dude, Jim Miller has got Dan Miller, right? Clay Guida has Jason Guida. Antonina Shevchenko has Valentina Shevchenko. Sergio Pettis has Anthony Holmes.
Yep.
Oh, I had to think about that one for a second. Woof. In this case, the Nurmagomedovs, they got Abubakar. So is he getting that favorite status because of the name? Maybe it's a good chance to just catch an underdog for the simple fact that the popular pick has gone the other way.
All right, we got Armen Petrosyan taking on AJ Dobson. Petrosyan is a minus 190 favorite. Dobson can be had for plus 165. Who you got here, Cody?
Yeah, I got to go with Armen Petrosyan here, big time. I'm high on this guy. I like what he brings to the table. I mean, he's a guy that's coming over from a purely kickboxing background. When he came onto the Contender Series, it was like pure striking, no ground game, taking on this big old thick Bulgarian boy who was quite the opposite. He only had wrestling, had no striking. And you see him give up multiple takedowns in the first round, 3 takedowns, but his get-up game is pretty solid. And as soon as he does get up, he's nasty, man. He's got big rangy kicks, puts power into all of them. He'll destroy your lead leg, but beyond that, he gets you thinking low and he goes up top. And sure enough, he knocks out Kovalev, gets the contract, comes into the UFC, gets Gregory Rodriguez. Me and you make a shoey bet on it. You like Gregory Rodriguez because he does have that BJJ base. He was a former world champion, although you don't see him use his grappling a whole lot. It's like, the grappler's probably going to get the striker down. Now, you could have won that fight. The judges could have given it the other way, but I agreed with how they gave it to Petrosyan because, he did get taken down and he got back up every single time. He brought a pace every single time. He got his nose shattered with a head kick, hit the deck, gave up his back, pounced back up, and went right back. Volume striker, tough as nails, durable, going to make you fight for 15 minutes, like it. Then he gets Caio out. Caio's kind of my guy. And even though I thought this would be a lot dicier, I went with Caio. His get-up game didn't look too good there now, did it? Right? He wasn't able to use that high-end striking because he was getting grounded continuously, and all that was just kind of troublesome if he's going to break into that upper echelon. Now, he's still young. He's still green. He very much is a kickboxer. No doubt he'll add those other skills to his repertoire and hopefully become effective. Meanwhile, with AJ Dobson is very green in himself. I mean, he comes from like a powerlifting background in Ohio, very strong, very physical. But in terms of what he brings to the UFC, it's mostly just, that big striking, that big power early. It looks like he tends to fade. On the Contender Series, he got the first round submission victory, so you didn't get to see it there. But he's wild. He's reckless. He's not going to be able to fight a full 15 minutes with that kind of pace, and he doesn't have the experience to draw back on. They need to take an AJ Dobson, and they need to bring him along slowly. Let him fight 2 or 3 guys that come off the Contender, that come off a low regional scene. Let the guy get comfortable in his own skin, and maybe he could turn out to be a decent enough prospect. But they gave him Jacob Malkoun. He gave up 6 takedowns. He got, controlled pretty hard in that fight. And against Armen Petrosyan, what is he going to do? Is he going to all of a sudden be the takedown guy? He's not shown us that. He's strong, sure, but it's not going to be enough. I think he could get takedowns over Petrosyan. Petrosyan pops right back up. In terms of the striking, he may have a slight power advantage over Petrosyan. But one, I seen Petrosyan get a shin, bounced off his face, hit the deck, and was completely fine. His nose is broken. His mouth is filling up with blood. He's got RoboCop on the back of him. And he was just like, time to get up and kick some ass. I like the guy's chin. I think if Dobson clips him, he stays upright. But over the course of 15 minutes, I know Petrosyan can bring the pace. I know he can bring the pressure. I know he can bring the volume. And I feel like Dobson's carrying around too much straight power, too much, quick, fast twitch reflex muscle. And he's going to tie you down with that kind of pace over the stretch of 15 minutes or less if he succumbs to it and gets TKO'd somewhere in the second or the third. But I got to go with Petrosyan to get the job done here.
Yeah, total agreement coming from this side of the desk. Dobson over the course of 15 minutes, I think, he could have a little bit of success early in the fight. He's very athletic. Hits very, very hard, but it's like, and I thought he looked very much looked improved against Malkoun last time out. Especially early in the fight before he was getting taken down. Like he was having some success in round 1 there. But like, if you go back and watch the Contender Series fight against, forgive me for pronouncing this wrong, but Arcega, is that how you pronounce it? Hashim Arcega.
Yeah. You could pronounce it 10 times, it'd be different every time.
Of course. Like, it was like, wacky inflatable arms, man. Like, the guy was just throwing caution to the... Now, maybe partially that's because he's on Contender Series. You're on a show where it's like, unless you're getting finishes, you're not... unless you're getting finishes, you're typically, maybe not so much these days. They kind of just hire everybody. But like back then, if you don't get a finish, you weren't getting a job in the UFC. So that probably factors into it a little bit. But like, it was super, super sloppy. So I was kind of surprised when he took on Jacob Malkoun in the follow-up fight. That's like, I thought, at least in round one, he looked a lot more composed. Looked like he had a lot more potential. But now he's taking a massive step up against somebody. Like, Malkoun is a great wrestler. We talk about him all the time. We talk about, great wrestling, can't finish a sandwich. I mean, he proved that against Nick Maximov, where he had a wounded animal in front of him for 10 minutes. Like, Maximov's leg was toast after round one. And Malkoun still couldn't finish him, which is just glorious. The guy's just like, Malkoun by decision is the gift that keeps on giving. Gotta love that guy. But yeah, Petrosian, I think on the feet is going to cause so many problems for him. I'm not too concerned about AJ Dobson when I already think that he has a bit of a cardio issue. I'm not too concerned about him coming out here and spamming takedowns. Maybe he can spam a couple takedowns in round one. So like, can he do that in rounds 2 and 3 and steal rounds 2 and 3? I don't think he has the gas tank to continue with that type of style. So I think Petrosian is a rightful favorite. I think Petrosian probably gets him out of there after a little bit of, maybe rides the struggle bus a little bit early in the fight, because Dobson is dangerous early. But yeah, Armen Petrosian for me and you. We move on down to the biggest favorite on the card. We got Muhammad Makhachev taking on Malcolm Gordon, minus 1,200. For the, 21, 22-year-old superstar in Makhachev. And Gordon is plus 800. I mean, Gordon, his major skill set is supposed to be his grappling, but it's like that's not probably going to work out all that well against this kid. This kid's super, super... He's, sky's the limit in terms of his overall skill set. Obviously against Charles Johnson last time out, got like 12 takedowns. Wasn't able to get the finish, but like I think that was really, really good for his development. I wasn't so high on him coming from Brave CF. I saw some holes in his game, but it's like as this kid gets more developed, gets more time in there, he's only going to get better every single fight. It's like I'm not stepping in front of him with someone like Malcolm Gordon, who, like we have said many times on this show, this guy's got severe durability issues. Haven't seen so much power out of the hands of Makhachev. So what I do like, a way to attack this on Prize Picks, Makhachev takedowns is 2. So it's just like, if you think that all we need is Malcolm Gordon to just survive a little bit, like Charles Johnson was able to survive a little bit. It's like, Makhachev is going to be spamming takedowns early and often. If that chin can hold up, maybe Malcolm Gordon can, fight long enough to allow this to go over. Obviously, last time out, 12 takedowns. You would have cashed this in round 1 against Charles Johnson. Frankly, actually, we did have him and D1 Diakase together as a play, and that was like the easiest Prize Picks cash that I think we've ever had. But Makhachev over 2 takedowns, I think that's a nice little angle on Prize Picks. As for betting this actual fight, like me, like what are you supposed to do with a minus 1,200? How does he find the finish here? I hadn't even looked at the props because minus 230 inside the distance. Submission plus 130, TKO plus. If I were to bet anything, it would probably be he finds that chin, the chin that we've seen be issues for Malcolm Gordon, and there's plus 260s, plus 280s out there. Makhachev wins by TKO. I think Makhachev wins. I don't know how I'm going to bet it though, because it's just such a wide line. Who you got?
Yeah, I gotta go in the same boat here. I'm not the biggest Makhachev guy, but the thing with these guys that you watch, they're really young, and you watch regional show tape, and it's like, there's holes in the game. It's like, yeah, you better capitalize on them holes right now because the next fight they're gonna be getting better and better. You know, Song Yadong is 23. You see remarkable improvements fight to fight, but he's a prospect people like. Let's talk about a prospect people don't like. What about a Chase Hooper? Right? Everybody writes him off. He's a bum. Man, he's so young. This Raul Rosa kid from the Contender Series, he's 17 and a half years old. What's he going to look like at 23? What's he going to look like at 25? What's he going to look like at 28? There's going to be improvements, right? So Makhachev, I feel like the best time to catch him was probably early before this kid really starts getting comfortable. He's training at a high level. He's getting those rounds in. Of course, he was a wrestling champion from Dagestan, but over in the UK, is able to beat those guys, sure. But similar to a Chimaev going to Sweden and continuing his wrestling career there, you're still wrestling, high level guys what the country has to offer. And then beyond that, you go to these international tournaments. I feel like the kid's got solid wrestling. His submission game, pretty okay. His striking, it's old school combat Sambo. Like his chin's a little high up in the air and he'll wing some overhand shots. But again, he's making everything work for himself. The Cody Durden fight, who would have think that he was going to smash him with the flying knee right out the gate? That did lead to the guillotine choke, but again, it was the knee. A lot of his fights, I mean, you see him prefer the grappling, prefer the submission, but I think his striking is a work in progress, and I think it should work here against Malcolm Gordon. Now, Malcolm Gordon was known for his striking. He's a Team Tompkins guy. He's with Sam Stout and Mark Hallman and Chris Wardecki. The guy's a striking machine. Wins his first 5 or 6 career fights. Then he runs into Randy Turner, and he's a huge favorite over Randy Turner on the Canadian regional scene. Turner was a military guy, like literally needed to go back to the army and just took a fight in between and knocks Malcolm Gordon out. Okay, fine, happens to guys. The next fight against Austin Ryan, he got completely knocked out. His fight with Dimitri Waterberg, his lead leg got completely chewed off within 2 minutes, and he couldn't walk on it. And then he got knocked out when he couldn't defend himself because he couldn't move his feet. His fight with Yoni Sherbatov, he is in the process of getting knocked out and then falls onto Yoni Sherbatov's back and takes him out. So again, you're seeing 4 examples of he can't take a punch. So when he came to the UFC, you and I load up on Amir Albazi. Albazi hurt him standing, but then choked him out with the triangle choke on the ground. Sumaderji knocks him out in 44 seconds. That chin's there for the taking. Now, Francisco Figueiredo, not his brother, doesn't have that big power, kind of a bust. And then the Dennis Bondar kid, big time ballooned up record. And beyond that, Dennis Bondar broke his arm like, I don't know, a minute into the fight, tried to post on it and just like fell over. And then Malcolm Gordon's able to take care of business. Winning 2 fights in the UFC, that's sweet. Malcolm Gordon's overachieving at this point. He's done an excellent job of winning a couple fights. They booked him to take on Alan Nascimento. That's a bad fight for him. But Alan Nascimento, Malcolm Gordon pulls out of the fight. And then what does the UFC do? No favors. They rebook him 2 months later against Makhachev. So I feel like they know what they want to do with this kid. He's extremely marketable. The UFC lost Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now we got a kid here that wears the same hat and has the same style, and he's young and he's promising and he's undefeated and he's all those things that they want to market. Plus, he lives in England and he speaks great English. He's a good-looking kid. The UFC knows what they're going to do here. They need to match him up with the very proper fights. They need matchups that are going to get him highlight reel finishes, matchups that can help build this kid up the same way that they can build up a Sean O'Malley and have him as less than a 3-1 favorite against Peter Yan, because you drum up that narrative. They'll do the same thing with Makhachev. They know what they're doing here. I think he gets the job done. Like you're saying, minus 1,100, minus 1,200, there's no more meat on the bones. You got to try to say, well, do I think it's by decision? Personally, I don't. By submission, you can see that. But I mean, Malcolm Gordon's a BJJ black belt under George Britos. There's no slouch. Mm-hmm. I would think take him down and just get drubbing on him. And you'll see a lot of these spots where guys cover up, and then the ref's like, hey, man, cover up. You're just sitting in his guard, but it's that relentlessness. That's the ability to just keep the pressure, keep the pace. Gordon at some point turtles. The referee says, hey, man, defend yourself. He doesn't quite do it quick enough. Ref jumps in, TKO stoppage. Maybe the first, maybe the second. I don't think it goes a whole lot longer than that, but I will take Makhachev to get the job done.
Yep. All right, and finally we got Karol Rosa taking on Lena Landsberg. Karol Rosa is a minus 335 favorite. Landsberg can be had for plus 275. I mean, this seems like a nice little bounce back spot, I suppose, for Karol Rosa, who went out there against Sarah McMahon last time out and couldn't deal with Mama Bear McMahon's, Olympic level wrestling. It's the great equalizer. McMahon is, old, long in the tooth. The striking has never really quite been there, but it's like if you can take somebody down and hold them down for extended periods of time, you will win MMA fights. Landsberg doesn't really have much pedigree, outside of taking down Macy Chiasson twice. It's like usually she's on the opposite side, she's on the losing side of the wrestling exchanges in most of her fights. Yana Kunitskaya was able to take her down 5 times. Rose has always obviously been, we hadn't seen her struggle against somebody with better wrestling like that before. And she took on Sarah McMahon. I think she's a rightful favorite here. Minus 335 just doesn't get me very excited. There's so many spots on this card for me to try to, get my money in plus EV situations, or what I perceive to be plus EV situations. I don't love it, but I think she should be able to secure takedowns if she wants to. If it's just a stand-up affair, it's like, she was able to. It's against Betch Correia, not exactly a pretty one, but it's like multiple times now. Lara Procopio, Vanessa Mello. It's just like she is eclipsing 120, 170 significant strikes in 15 minutes. It's like I really don't see Landsberg capable of maintaining that type of pace. So unless Landsberg is a better wrestler than I'm giving her credit, I really struggle to see how Landsberg gets the job done here. The last thing is, what is Rosa by decision? Probably pretty chalky still. We got Rosa by decisions. Basically straight pick 'em. I see some minus 110s out there. That's how I would, improve your minus 335. Get it down to minus 110 by taking Karol Rosa by decision. Your thoughts?
Yeah, basically the same thing. I'm hesitant to hit Karol Rosa because I had a lot of faith in her against Mama Bear McMahon, who, again, another one of these fighters with kind of a quitter mentality. And I thought Rosa just so much volume and going to bring the pain. And yeah, she got taken down at will. Not a great go. But the flip side to that is she still landed 26 significant strikes, getting taken down the entire fight. Whereas Lena Landsberg also fought Sarah McMahon. She landed 1 significant strike over the course of 15 minutes. There's levels to this. McMahon cannot wrestle a girl. We all know that. Rosa did a better account of herself. She actually is a BJJ black belt. Stand-up wise, she has the superior volume, the superior striking. She's got a really good chin. And even in the McMahon fight, she had some success in the 3rd round. Couldn't capitalize on it, but, at least it's someone that's going to continuously bring it. Lena Landsberg, meanwhile, is another case of the UFC just not really doing people favors. Here's a girl that is 40 years old, okay? She's on a 2-fight losing streak. After she lost to McMahon, she took 2 full years off. Actually, longer than 2 full years. She took 27 months off. They bring her back versus Penny Kianzad because, hey, let's establish who the best Swedish woman fighter is, right? The best stand-up practitioner. She loses to Penny Kianzad. That's kind of writing on the wall. It's low volume, not great. You should just set her off to say farewell. At the very least, give her a nice winnable fight. And you give her Karol Rosa so she can go out as a 3.5 to 1 underdog in her last fight instead. Again, she's been very, very low volume for the majority of her career. You've already touched on that. Rosa, big volume, her low volume. Sometimes it really is as easy as that. Beyond that, it's like, well, what about the variables? Well, maybe she tries to take down Rosa, do it with-handed. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. I mean, she's a Swedish Muay Thai practitioner, known as the elbow queen. She's not suddenly going to come in here and beat Jordan Burroughs. Just not going to happen, right? Could she get some success in maybe taking Rosa down once or twice? Sure. Rosa's going to get back up. When she does get back up, it's going to put that pace on her. What about the clinch game? Lena Landsberg is decent in the clinch? Perhaps so, but Rosa, again, just going to continuously work the body, work some short knees, work some short elbows, and kind of just slowly pull away. But beyond that, it's like, well, what if you get her respect? What if she just stings Rosa with a big shot? It's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'll tell you why that's not going to happen, right? Her wins in the UFC are Lucy Pudilova by decision, Tanya Evinger by decision, Macy Chiasson by decision, and Gina Mazzani by decision. That last one, I brought it up last for a very specific reason. Nobody beats Gina Mazzani by decision. Everybody smokes Gina Mazzani when they fight her. Shayna Young took 2 rounds to knock her out. Priscilla Cachoeira, 2 rounds to knock her out. Julia Avila needed 22 seconds to knock her out. Macy Chiasson needed 1:49 to knock her out. Sarah McMahon choked her out in 1:14. And Lena Landsberg went 15 minutes with her. Like, oh, man, she does not have fight-ending power. She doesn't have a submission game. She's 40 years old. She has low volume. Anything can happen. It's a fight, but this is not set up for her to go out there and win. Karol Rosa was slowly positioning herself into title contendership. Loses to McMahon, but that's more of a style clash than anything else. I think she'd be looking to get back on track, jump right back into the hunt. UFC knows she needs a soft bounce back opponent that's going to stand in front of her and throw some strikes. Landsberg's that girl. So I got to think fade the underdog, go with Caio Rosa. Big favorite, yes. But as you mentioned, Rosa not really known for her finishing abilities. And if there's one thing with Lena Landsberg, is like she can still take a decent shot. She can still kind of be there to take those. The Pannie Kianzad fight, it looked like she was hurt down the stretch. Pannie was putting a decent pressure on her, and she stuck with it the whole time. Yeah, she's 40, but she's got her pride still intact. And I know that if this is her last UFC fight, surely she's not going to go over there and try to roll over. So I think she gives it her best, comes up short, loses a decision. Caio Rosa.
Yep. I actually just added Caio Rosa by decision to my card at -110. I got Gadzhi Omargadzhiev at plus 150 on the money line, and then I made some sub-prop stuff. I got that concoction of Jan submission props, which comes out to plus 32.66. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Jan work in some takedowns here, and if it's on the mat any extended period of time at plus 32.66, I'm not going to kill myself if it doesn't happen. Caio Borralho by submission plus 400. I see plus 460s out there. I like that. Gadzhi by submission. I see a plus 1050 out there. I'm already in at plus 900. Kind of like that as well. As always, at Paul Shag on Twitter, I will drop all of my plays Saturday early morning probably is when I'm going to drop them. Maybe Friday night, but yeah, that's what I got from a betting perspective on Prize Picks. The looks that I still like. I think Caio Rosa fantasy score over 78.5. I expect her to get back on track in terms of her volume here. 78.5 seems like she can eclipse that number. Abubakar less than 80.5 fantasy score. Caio more than 80.5 fantasy score. Makhachev more than 2 takedowns. Obviously, that always relies on Malcolm Gordon's durability, which is, wishful thinking. And Krylov less than 1.5 takedowns. Sterling, I liked it better at 2.5, but even 2 takedowns, I really don't think he's just going to be able to go out there and take down TJ Dillashaw at will. So those are kind of the Prize Picks plays that I'm mixing and matching this week. Cody, without further ado, hit him with the PRP.
Hit him with the PRP. And right before that, I'm booking a couple of MMA fights, one in Lethbridge, Alberta, one in Ontario, Toronto, November 17th. And anyways, I got a list of free agents. Manager sends me over some guys. These guys are high-profile guys that come at a good price that, they have passports. They can come over the border. And you look at it, some good names, man. You got Luigi Vendramini, Devontae Smith, and boom, Adriano Martins. That one's funny because, holy shit, I can book the last guy to beat Islam Makhachev. I can book the only guy that beat Islam Makhachev for a relatively good price, too. And looking at his record, he has not won a fight since. He's on a 7-fight losing streak. So, yeah, dude, listen, everybody loves the Russian hype, no doubt about it. But Chucky Alves, he's cash plus money tickets for us before. Let's do it. Justin Gaethje took an inhumane amount of damage against Michael Chandler before he toppled over. Against Poirier. He took a huge amount of damage against Eddie Alvarez before he toppled over. Charles took him out in one, dog. That's impressive.
Yeah, I forgot.
Charles Oliveira. Yeah.
I forgot to mention that Charles is on my card as well. But people get really triggered when, I've got prices that are long gone at this point. People get really triggered when you it won't end up on my Twitter posted card because it's just what good is me saying I have plus 285 on Charles Oliveira? There's no good that can be done to anybody by me posting that on Saturday morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why when I put up my posts on Twitter, I take the odds as they are as I make the tweet, right? I'm not saying all this shit you got on Monday. Well, dude, that top line, you could have got it for plus 165. Let's say, nah. You want to bet it and you're turning on Twitter right now and you don't have any plays set in and you're looking and that's what it is. That's what the market is right now. On a 13-fight card, we're going to need some dogs. Charles Oliveira, dog number 2. TJ Dillashaw, dog number 3. We're going to go with Petr Yan. We're going to go with Gamrot. We're going to go with Manon Fiorot. We're going to go with Belal Muhammad, dog number 3. We're going to go with Caio Borralho. We're going to go with Nikita Krylov. Lucas Almeida, dog number 4. Gadzhi Omargadzhiev, dog number 5. Armen Petrosian, Muhammad Makhachev. and Carol Rosa. So 5 underdogs on a 13 fight card. Yeah, maybe is it a little bit, but you guys know how these cards go. There's about generally 5-6 underdogs seemingly coming through all the time. Hopefully we've got the right blend. In terms of, yeah, there's some passes on there. If you want to keep your card a lot tighter, a lot shorter, feel free to do so. But yeah, lots of different spots that you could pick from. And of course, decent props, decent prize pick selections as well. So I think that there's a good way of tackling this. The main thing is it's an early start time card for a pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. So just don't get caught with your pants down and miss some of the action.
I love afternoon UFC cards, especially good afternoon cards. Like the Abu Dhabi, that time shift is perfect. It's like this card starts at what, like 10 a.m.? Amazing.
Yeah.
Roll out of bed, make breakfast, do a couple things. I mean, I guess you're waking up super early with the baby and all of that. It's just like, I'm going to be, you can be half asleep for Carol Rosa versus Lena Landsberg. Like, you don't need to be, firing on all cylinders yet. And then, it still gives you a Friday night if you have any sort of social life and want to go do things. Like, the card's going to be done by, like, in the early afternoon or, early evening at the very worst. I love it. I wish all the cards took place over there.
Yeah, I agreed to work this Friday Brave CF shift at Fight Network. So, like, I don't know, their card starts at 11:30. So I got to get there an hour early, make sure my satellite transmission feed's coming in properly, and then I'll have Brave going, UFC going, be an afternoon of fights. And then, yeah, you know what I mean? I got the day off. My wife will have to take care of the baby for the afternoon. Little Cody gets to watch a whole bunch of MMA fights. Hopefully, with a little bit of good luck, come home with a little extra bacon from some hot parlays and schmoo things over between the fam. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. And again, like you said at the top of the show, it's like a meaningful pay-per-view for the first time in a while, which of course kind of always gives you that big fight feel, that big fight vibe, right? Little extra excitement.
Yeah, hopefully everything just holds together as the week goes along. Everyone makes weight. Everyone does everything that they're supposed to do. And we still have 13 fights on Saturday afternoon. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For Cody Saftic and producer Megan, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.